shelling out money, anything, ayy. Ooh, got the foot on the gas, pedal to the metal when I'm get to the bag, ayy. Got the foot on the gas, pedal to the metal when the lane moving fast, ayy. Ayy, let them all cross. If they hate, then let them hate and make a bigger boss, ayy.
This episode is brought to you by SPI Logistics, the premier freight agent logistics firm in North America. For over 40 years, SPI has been diligently building the most successful freight agent network to provide first-class relationships for our shippers, receivers, and carrier partners. We are more than another transportation network. We are a dedicated team of professionals united by one singular purpose, and that is to expedite our agents' success. All of our agents are set up for success on day one, as they are provided with a full suite of support staff that is ready to assist them with everything from after-hours emergencies to financial and administrative needs on a no-fee basis. This way, you can focus on continuing to grow your business. There is no financial risk to start, and you have the ability to earn up to 75% in commissions. If you are looking to take control of your financial future and build your business with the backing of one of the most successful logistics firms in North America, visit www.spi3pl.com to learn more. Do me a favor and let them know that the Freight Coach sent you. All right, guys, before we jump into the interview, we are going to do my favorite segment, which is This Week in Freight, powered by my friends over at DAT. And again, you guys, this is 100% viewer submitted, okay? And if you want your lane broken down on the show, I need you to email my team, podcast@thefreightcoach.com. And we're going to break it down for you. So today it's flatbed, and this one is a very, very eerily similar lane than to what we personally move out there. It's Fort Wayne, Indiana, going to Phoenix, Arizona. Now, if this is your first time hearing this segment, the first thing I always pay attention to is miles, okay? Why is that? Day of the week matters for the majority of the freight that is shipped out in regards to pricing and capacity. This lane, it's a lot of miles, right? This is a great Thursday to Monday run or a Friday to Monday run, preferably in that situation. And again, if your customer is adamant on moving it out on Thursday and they're unaware that like, hey, it's going to deliver Monday no matter what, so we can snag it on Friday. Again, most shippers, you guys, don't assume people have given them basic information, all right? I have been shocked in my career when I've had these conversations about certain situations, transit times, you know, things that go on in the industry, and customers like literally nobody's ever told us this. So again, don't assume that everybody knows everything that you know out there, and just bring it up to them. See if it is an option. That's how we position ourselves, because again, like this is a very stable lane. Now, the outbound Arizona market, it gets tricky at times, you know, because there isn't a ton of freight that goes on outside of, you know, there's some seasonality in regards to the flatbed market. But again, you find loose capacity as the year progresses in Arizona, and you can see rates going inbound Arizona start to creep up. But like right now on this one, you guys, when I'm looking at the numbers here, very, very accurate on what we have personally been moving a very similar lane for. But again, I know a lot of people want to talk about how tight capacity is in flatbed market. And I know that it might seem like that at times on certain lanes that are out there. But again, if you're doing what we talk about on this show a lot and you are working with your core carriers, you're insulating your customers from a lot of this volatility, because there are people that are out there who don't necessarily want to play the spot market. They need that consistency to get their trucks back into those markets because they have dedicated freight coming out of those markets. And this is one of those lanes, right? Like, we have a lot of our carriers that we work with out of the Midwest who run to the West Coast, and they pick up for us in Arizona for another shipper of ours going up into Montana, Wyoming, Colorado, and stuff like that. So we have what I consider a closed capacity loop that's out there. And I know, you know, I'm bringing up a lot of this, you guys, because it's a common conversation piece right now about how volatile it is primarily inside of the flatbed market. And when you're looking at a lane like this, I mean, it's close to what you're going to pay. At least that's what I have found out there. But there are times where we do pay higher than that. But again, like when we're bidding out our customers, you know, on any of the lanes that we're moving, we're not going back and re-quoting on a lot of this stuff, right? Like the price is the price. And if we win it, we're going to move it for the price that we quoted them, even if that comes at a loss. There has been some of those instances that we found out there where we've had to take a loss on this lane, but it's been very stable. All right. And if we're looking at a lot of this stuff right now, this lane has jumped up kind of a lot here in the last 7 days. It really stabilized in May and June, but we're starting to see this. And again, as you guys know, it's right up on the 4th of July weekend. That's where you're going to see a spike on pretty much every single lane in the United States for the most part. But this one will taper back off after the 4th of July. Just like I've been saying pretty much all week here, and I'll jump into next week, you'll start to see that, where again, there's going to be some post-holiday rate increase, pre-holiday and post-holiday rate increases that you're going to see. But again, there's enough capacity that's running this lane. And again, the miles are very good on this one. And a lot of people love to run long miles. So you're going to find a truck on it. Like I said, it's been stable. You'll probably see an increase here over the next couple of weeks. I would say for obviously post 4th of July, there'll probably be a upcharge that comes along with it. I've seen it a lot out there, but again, this is one of those lanes that is probably going to stabilize as the year progresses. And before you know it, flatbed season is going to be wrapped up in October, and then this rate's going to plummet in all reality for the most part, maybe potentially. Not advocating for cheap freight, but this lane, it's a power lane. It's stable. There's a lot of capacity that goes on out there. And especially if you know how to work these tight markets that people love to talk about out there, you can execute at a very high level and insulate your customers from that. But that's it for This Week in Freight, powered by my friends over at DAT, you guys, for flatbed. And again, if you want your lane broken down in the show, email my team, podcast@thefreightcoach.com, and we will take care of it. Now, let's get into the interview. What is up, ladies and gentlemen? We are back. We are live. It is the Freight Coach Podcast, the top podcast in transportation, coming to you guys every single weekday, 8:30 a.m. Pacific, 10:30 Central, to break down some industry headlines. But most importantly, you guys provide some actual insight into what you can do with all of this information. This is your first time tuning in. Welcome. This is the real side of freight, ladies and gentlemen. I say that before every single show. And what I mean by that is I only speak with transportation professionals, because at the end of the day, I want to talk to the right individuals who have done what you're looking to do, or who are currently doing what you're trying to achieve, so you can take that information, apply it, utilize it, and see a meaningful difference in your business and your life. I want to welcome my friend Derek here on. We were connected here a couple of weeks ago, and we finally got a time locked in to record. And you know, I always love talking to individuals who live, breathe, and sleep this industry, and on top of it, share a passion for training. And that's something that I love the most. So, Derek, thank you so much for taking the time to join us here today.
Yeah, you bet.
So, dude, we kind of, I feel like I should have hit record like 15 minutes ago when we first started talking, because we got a lot of ground covered. But man, it's, you know, hearing your experience in the industry and mine, it does to me kind of boil down to like quality training is such a, why is it such an oversight by so many companies, do you think?
Yeah. I think it's, you know, I think it's a miss because I think so many people are in a rush to, you know, to onboard people, bring them on, do what they need to do. But I think it's just a cyclical thing of the, you know, something that is an oversight of, hey, this person's already trained, or this person knows how to do this, right? And I think the time that I've spent, you know, in my past, and the emphasis on training and what we do here for our operations and sales folks, it's just a different approach of just, you know, kind of chasing the low cost. And really, you know, I know everyone talks about value, right? Sell value. What does that mean? Yeah. So when we talk about value, it's not just, hey, here's some dashboards, here's some reporting metrics. Here's, you know, this is an opportunity for us to really engage with our customers outside of just QBRs, right? So part of that is just visibility, and then just making sure that our staff is trained, you know, well enough to talk about those things and take a, you know, we call our sales reps logistics consultants, because that's really what they are. You know, we're not looking to sell the next best thing of like, hey, go here, go do this now. This is more of an approach of, if this is something you don't need right now, or ever, then, you know, we'll just kind of leave it and table it where it's at. But, you know, how can we help you get to your goals? And a lot of that is just knowing that we're all on the same page. And, you know, one of my big things that I've always tried to do is break down silos. Silos can, you know, create havoc. I mean, you know, some small silos are okay, but, you know, I've also worked in many, you know, larger corporations where, you know, silos can become deafening, and it really impedes on productivity, sales, operations, you know, clashing. So, you know, our sales training approach, and really our overall approach with, what we're putting our group through is with impact sales is kind of breaking it down so operations can see what sales is doing, sales can see what operations is doing, and getting rid of those silos so we do become one and one force to move forward. So.
Why are silos a thing? Do you think? Because it's like I'm of that mindset as well. Like I want complete visibility across all departments, right? I don't want any go to this person to get approval to see that thing, because I feel like for a successful operation, everybody has to be able to talk, everybody has to be able to see what's going on. And I just believe in like just brutal transparency is what I call it. Like I don't feel the need to ever do anything, because I think ultimately your customer and your carrier lose if you as a broker are up there creating any internal silos to prohibit the workflow. I'm more of when I'm out there developing business, I'm the tried and true hunter, man. I love to develop the business, but as soon as we got the business, I'm kind of like, all right, it's dead, on to the next thing, right?
Yeah.
But I also want to set my team up for all the success in the world by asking a ton of different questions in that prospecting phase. And when you're training your reps, because you were mentioning you guys are like LTL heavy, you like to take that consultant approach to it. How do you guys kind of build that value into the very first outreach? Because, I think in today's environment in developing business, you can't just rely on one method anymore, right? You got to be able to call, email, make content, DM, all of these, show up in person. There's a lot of different angles you guys got to take now.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And I think, when you talk these different modes, right? Like you're talking, truckload, LTL, there's thousands of brokers out there doing the same thing. And, I think our approach to it and to build that value out, not only, transparency internally and externally, but, really utilizing some of our other resources and stepping out and, creating services for the customer, but also expanding what we're doing too, right? So, one of the things that we do outside of just LTL and truckload is, we do parcel auditing, and that's a good segue in, because what you hear a lot is like, maybe they don't have LTL, maybe they don't have truckload, but typically they're going to have one of the three, right? So just opening that up with our partners that we utilize and kind of showing the value that way, right? Of, hey, we may not be able to help you on these things right here, but these are other services that we can potentially help you on, to kind of open that door and start talking about that. So when I'm talking, the consultant approach, it's not just like, hey, let's just get some truckload rates. Hey, let's put a bid out for your LTL. This is a little bit higher level where, the sale is a little different. So it ranges. And that's why we train our sales reps accordingly, because we may not be talking just the shipping guy on the back dock. This is a higher level where, we're approaching, we're going to approach the CFO, we're going to approach the CEO and talk about, real things that, that are relatable, right? We're talking EBITDA, we're talking financials, we're talking real numbers that can have an impact pretty quickly, right? So when we're looking at these, larger customers and entering this field, our staff is equipped to talk about it and really give that solution or that consultant approach of, hey, we're just going to save you money, because that is heard many times and shut down many times, because obviously everything that's going on in the industry, again, I think it can just be a race to the bottom if you're not careful with how you're positioning services.
How do you get noticed in a crowded environment, right? Like I think at times we think transportation's so unique, and but it's like every business, every industry is highly competitive. There's a ton of competitors that are out there in every space. And, like with us, with my operation, like we're full truckload, right? Like I will never sell our ability to move LTL in the prospecting phase, right? If my customer comes to me after we've been moving truckload and they're like, hey, can you guys do LTL? We'll explore it at that time, but that's not like my core service offering, right?
Yeah.
And but I've noticed that it at least, and this goes with, them actually answering the phone or actually responding to the email. So I want to preface it from there. But you are able to separate yourself, because I actually put it in there like, hey, if you guys are a certain above this percentage of LTL, like we're not going to be a fit. I don't even want to waste your time. I don't want to waste my time, because that's just not our thing. Like our whole identity is full truckload. Primarily, we want to find those shippers and develop those customers that are in that 4 to 10 a day truckload opportunities. Because for me, I'm not saying anything isn't worth our time, but when you get into some of those larger enterprise shippers, I can't compete on price. All right. Like I can't do it. Some of these larger operations out there, they spend more on coffee in a month than I will make in a year. Right. It's just one of those things where it's like, I got to go in there and I got to make money. And anything below a certain threshold, I found they kind of revert to the lowest cost, right? They're like, hey, we got 15 brokers. We send a quote out, whatever one comes in the cheapest, we go with that one. Yeah. That's not conducive to the growth of my company and the trajectory of where I'm trying to take this.
Right. Yeah. So I think you're just in, we're in a mix of the industry right now of, separation, obviously, with the things that are going on in the industry with, broker liability and how we position those things. And, I totally get what you're saying. I think the thing that helps us out the most, again, just kind of going back to that low cost model, it's not sustainable, and it won't be, especially with capacity potentially exiting at a potentially higher rate, higher clip as we move forward. So. I think the thing for us is that we've just really concentrated on maybe getting rid of a lot of the transactional type of work that we're doing, quoting multiple systems and, multiple people, brokers, and we've kind of just said, hey, that's maybe that's not the game we want to be in. Right.
Yeah. I just think like at times, Derek, everybody hears how big this industry is and they think they have to be everything, right? Like they have to offer everything. And I think that this next iteration of freight, I mean, we've pretty much been in the industry around the exact same time. Back 5-10 years ago, like you could literally go out there and say, we can do everything. We're the best at anything. Right. And people would like give you an opportunity based on that. But like right now and I saw it after COVID, you have to have something of substance now. I mean, I've been calling some of these companies and prospecting some of these companies for like 15 months, and I haven't got a response outside of maybe the operator answers every fifth time I call, right? And it's one of those things where it's like, how do you stand out right now, and how do you get noticed? And to me, it's like the more refined you can be in your approach out there, the better off you're going to be. And I think we're about to embark upon a time that nobody's ever really seen out there in the industry with, with the new modus registration that happened at the FMCSA. And that's just phase one. Like phase two, they are very committed to going in and cleaning up that database. And it's going to be very interesting to see how much real capacity is really on the road and how much it's been kind of skirting by and not as, ethical as they should be.
Yeah. I mean, with an understaffed FMCSA and what's being reported in non-domiciled drivers and what that actual is in totality, I think is yet to be seen. I think this game gets a little bit, it gets a little bit more complex and complicated. And I think, the brokers and, some of the carriers that have been kind of, just dependent on, securing the low cost and racing that bottom, like I mentioned, are going to be kind of left out to lurch if they don't prioritize their carrier network and start doing stuff the way it needs to be done. So
how do you answer that question to your customers and your prospects when they all hear this stuff, right? Mm-hmm. Like I had once that broker liability case got finalized at the Supreme Court there. One of my shippers called me literally within like an hour afterwards, and they're like, what does this actually mean?
Yeah.
And that's where it's like, I feel like you really there right now is an opportunity to separate yourself at a level that I don't think anybody's ever seen before, because it's like, are you just a quoting tool or are you a real partner? Are you actually invested in how this industry operates, or are you just using load boards, marking it up 15% and sending off a rate and hoping for the best? And we saw this back in when a lot of the ELP talk was going on, and like I was calling all of my customers at that time. I'm like, hey guys, this is what this actually means. Okay, like the percentage of drivers that are going to be affected by this is, don't pay attention to the media. I've been doing this a long time. It's not as bad as they're trying to make it out to be, right?
Yeah.
And then it's a very subjective statement. But again, it's like you got to get out there and get ahead of these situations. And then you present yourself as the subject matter expert, because like I've had so many of my customers over the years, Derek, tell me this exact same line. Chris, we're not a transportation company. This is what we pay you for. We expect you to deliver this information to us, because if you don't, that's a problem. We shouldn't be working together.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think, that's a great point. And I think you're absolutely right. And I think that it puts us, brokers in a little bit of a precarious, position, as well as shippers, because they're going to start asking those questions, right? Because they're going to get pressure from above. What does it mean? What does negligence mean? And I think we're still out here, what does that mean? From that standpoint of what the court's ruling are. But, as long as, we know our process, and, giving that back to the customers, part of that training too, right? Like what, and we sent communication out internally to our team. Hey, here's some of the questions that could be coming from, what is our, kind of what's our defense posture? What is a plaintiff's attorney going to be asking for in court? How are they going to get this, information? And, really, when and if subpoenaed, you got to supply it, right? And you got to make sure that you're doing it the right way every time, and there's not a flaw in your system, and it's just got to be followed to a T. Kind of like when I was in aviation, it's the same type of thing, right? It's that record keeping. So, I mean, I'm starting to see a lot of familiarity like I did, back then. So, it's just going to, continue to tighten up. And really at the end of the day, when it comes to the insurance piece, when it comes to defense posture, when I look at insurance, when this first came out, the sky's falling, right? Everybody's running to their, attorneys, which they should, or they're running, because I'm not one, and I'm not claiming to be, but they're either running to, their, lawyers, which they should, that have experience in this field, or insurance, right? And they're looking at their, they're looking at their cargo, they're looking at their umbrellas, and, just running out and be, oh, you're underfunded. What does litigation cost and, per month for defense? I mean, if it's a thermonuclear, it could be $30,000 a month, right? Are you underfunded for that? And, I think the approach that, if you calm down, take a breath and look at it, just like Justice Kavanaugh said, these are all defendable cases, right? So the burden of the proof still remains on that plaintiff's attorney. But, I think it's a three-tiered system or three-pillar approach, because more insurance is only funding the answer if you lose the case. To me, I mean, yes, you probably are going to need more of that, and everybody's different. So everyone's, probably in a unique position to do what works best for them. But I don't, I think that, the pillars that we're looking at are obviously carrier vetting, right? And using that software. We use Highway. So, continuous audit trails and monitoring those things. And, when does that become, pulled into court, if it ever is? Are we putting too much onus on them to say, hey, you signed a contract, in that little writing in there, you said that this, and, and then you're back on the hook again, right? So making sure that you have defense posture, and then making sure that you have the right legal representation to make sure your carrier agreements, your broker agreements are done specifically, redone the right way, I think is super important, if not more important than going out and getting more insurance. So.
Yeah, I had my buddy, he is an insurance guy. I have in specifically in transportation. I had him on my show yesterday, and we were talking specifically about this entire topic, Derek. And the conclusion that I come to is brokers by law don't need insurance. I could see, I'm not going to say the law is going to change regarding that. I could see any broker not purchasing insurance moving forward, not getting access to any freight anymore. Yep. Because it's like, I think this really brings up a lot, like my big takeaway here, Derek, is it is going to boil down to risk mitigation. All right. Shippers are going to see this. As soon as that case came out, Home Depot and Warner had something happen in Texas where Home Depot was proven to not be liable. It was Warner's fault. And they said the findings he sent, the jury or the court said, they're like, hey, it's the trucking company's responsibility here, regardless of who is, back, who hired them. It is their decision, right? So again, now that it's down at the state level, it definitely changes how things are going to go. But if I'm a shipper, right, and I'm seeing a lot of this stuff, I'm like, all right, who can I push all of this risk onto, right? Because if you look at just nuclear verdicts alone, I would say 99% of the companies in this country, not just trucking, 99% of the companies in this country would be bankrupt if they were found to have a 10, 15, $20 million nuclear verdict and insurance denied it. Like, it would bankrupt 99% of the businesses in this country. Yeah. So it's like, when you see this now, your insurance is going to be more and more called in, where I could see shippers now going to all of their providers and like, hey, you need to have some form of insurance, or the shippers are going to rework their contracts and they're going to look at how do we reduce our risk. And then you're going to bring that to your insurance agent. Your insurance agent's going to be like, we can't insure you. Like, you have all of the risk here. And then when you trickle it down to the carriers, my big fear is a lot of the smaller carriers who do not have any documented safety score on the FMCSA will now not be able to haul freight. Or the FMCSA is going to have to make a massive fundamental change here, because if it's about safety, if it's about carrier selection, as a broker, that's what we rely on. And if that's not visible, again, I can't prove this, but I could see that as a potential hindrance here moving forward.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that it could displace a lot of that capacity. Again, driving up rates, and at the end of the day, when we're looking at the inflation, you look at CPI and what that's doing, just as an industry as a whole, and these shippers are going to have to take on, the onus is going to say, hey, what coverage do you have? And that's a good point. And it kind of goes back to the training. What are we doing internally to talk about those things? And, it's just going over our vetting process, how we determine those carriers, and the exception rule that we don't have, because right now there is no room for exception, and letting them know what that looks like for us, so they can feel a little bit more assured that we're doing everything on our end. So yeah, I agree with you though. I think it could do some displacement on those carriers that enter the market, and kind of I brought up the FMCSA, and the diligence and the onus kind of goes back on us now, right? And it's going to be interesting to see how this kind of transpires, and the next 5, 6, 7 months, and then as these cases come up, because they inevitably will, what sort of precedents that sets for the industry.
I am, and I said this the first time I publicly talked about that case on my show, I'm not as concerned about that ruling as I am the next ruling. What comes down next, right? Because again, when we're looking at I'm not saying that people shouldn't have rock solid processes and procedures internally. You should by all means, but I've been sued before. It's not about what you have internally. It's about what your attorney can prove in court.
Yes.
That is the real deciding factor, right? So it's like, I see a lot of, more importantly, I see a lot of opportunity, because I think the next case that comes down, whatever that fallout from that is going to shift our business. Is there going to be a fire sale of brokerages out there, right? Because they're like, it might not be worth anybody's time anymore. Or again, talking about insurance, that next ruling could fundamentally change how insurance is written, policies are written towards brokers. So it's like, it's that one that I'm paying the most attention to. But I think ultimately, though, Derek, a lot of people need to understand that, like, this is just another thing that they're going to be faced with in business. Right? It's not Like everybody thought COVID was going to be the end of the world. Now they think it's going to be the end of the world.
Right.
You know, I'll say this: stop going to Twitter to get your legal advice on what's going on.
Yeah.
You know, go in and speak, because like they're like, no matter what, and especially right now when we're seeing tightness in the market for the first time in we haven't seen tightness at this level for probably like 7 years, especially coupled with higher pricing, at least on the full truckload side. This is that opportunity that everybody's been looking for, right?
Yeah.
The pain hasn't been felt yet at the shipper level to where they're going to blow their doors open and be like, we need to bring in new providers, because there's still ample capacity on the road. We need more capacity to leave the market. Now, I'm not saying I want people to lose their jobs or their livelihood, but it's a numbers game at the end of the day in its simplest form. As many trucks as there is loads on the board, capacity is still fine. We need that deficit of capacity to be able to, from a business development standpoint, to really be able to work your magic and finesse your way in to show that you're different than everybody else.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think it just kind of goes by mode too, right? You look at the tonnage of the LTL and, where I think everybody thinks, increased rates just means healthy carrier. Well, you guys are, but, look at what's happened in the last couple of years, let's take the asset side of it, outside of brokerage too. Like, we've been doing this long enough that we know that the cycles, how they work. And, when carriers, get pinched like they have been, you got to catch up on maintenance, equipment, and, all these things. So to be a true partner on both sides of it, that you're right. And those, in my opinion, just coming from, broker and asset side, those things are going to continue to rise. Capacities are going to continue to tighten. And ultimately at the end of the day, costs are going to go up. And we're going to take that full on as the economy and consumers. Right. So, that's where the cost displacement, will go. Cause, that's just kind of how it works. But yeah, I mean, going back to, our differential and how we kind of approach this even outside of this ruling. Right. So, I mean, even take this back, rewind it. Even if it didn't happen, we still have some FMCSA things that were coming down the pipeline. And, it's in the best interest of, to just operate your business, best in class and, keep those procedures in place and have that defense posture built. I think you said something on one of your past shows and I just caught it and I kind of laughed. It was everybody's coming out and has a JD, right? Like, everybody's a lawyer right now. And I think that's hilarious. I mean, it is funny and it isn't funny, because I think a lot of people think that they do have the answer, right? Like, I've been doing this long enough and, I'm going to maintain the way that I'm doing stuff. And, until we set precedents, until we see some of these things, you just got to do everything you can to cover your bases and, make sure that your company's protected. So go out and find an attorney that's got, experience in this industry. Don't get your legal advice from, people like me or, on Twitter. So, but it's a real impact and, I think it'll be felt, but even more the reason for us to, continue to, the way that we position our services is, as that consultant approach and, we're watching these things and we're over communicating that to our customers. And, I think obviously there's a ton of sticker shock right now. What do you mean it's, $4,700? It was, $4,200 2 weeks ago or whatever it is. I mean, these things are just going to continue to fluctuate. And, it's kind of the perfect storm. So.
I think standards are a good thing though. Like, I think that with what could fall out from a lot of these rulings and kind of where the market is heading is it's going to really separate the providers, brokers, carriers that actually do exercise discipline and actually operate off of a system as opposed to the run and gun mentality that's out there. Because I'm not saying that capacity is loose in every single market that's out there, but I think a fundamental miss by a lot of people is all right, maybe there might not be 5 trucks for every single load on any given day of the week right now, but there's a truck out there. How are you positioning that to your customer? How are you selling that to your customer? How are you actually setting them up for success? Because the one thing that will never change in this industry, and everybody says they're great at it, but very few people are, because I have a lot of shippers on this show and none of you guys actually do this. It's called communicate. All right. It is as simple as that. If you cannot do something, say something. If
Yeah.
you are failing, say something. If something is going on, tell them. A really good way to operate, though, and this is where, I mean, I think we really, really excel out there is good, bad, or indifferent. Our customers know exactly what's going on. We send them like at minimum 8 to 10 updates every single load, right? We have preload updates, post-load updates, post-delivery, everything. They are just left with what is going on at all times. And you know what? Sometimes that comes with us saying, hey, we're failing. This is what happened. We're working to recover it. And that's the best you can do in that situation. I would love to lie and be like, oh, we're perfect. We never fail 100% on time.
Right.
But nobody would actually believe that.
Yeah, no, and no, it's your point. I think that starts at a high level in the company, right? Whether you're a shipper, whether you're a asset, whether you're a broker, is that form of over communication. And I think that goes back to kind of our wheelhouse of just our training and internal communication and breaking those silos down, right? Because I've been part of companies too, in organizations where you don't say anything, right? So that communication, not only externally but internally, how are you communicating? And if those things aren't repeatable, and you can't have honest communication, not only externally but internally as well, that creates dividing walls that customers can see that pretty clearly as well. So that's a great point on over communication, because I think that's something that's missed too. And again, I mean, you're looking this, like, again, we've been doing this for a while. So after COVID, I know there's a lot of brokers back out there that I talk to, and VP level positions that are back on the floor right now, because they're retraining some of these brokers just after this COVID, because it's like, hey, this is kind of going back to a market that to your point, we haven't seen in a long time, right? So, and I think we're in this generation too. I have a son that's 20 years old of this generation and he's in logistics, and it's very seldom pick the phone up. It's just it's an email, and it's a text. And I know a lot of people communicate like that, but one thing we strive to do is just pick the phone up, and just you got to be able to, if you're not getting a hold of somebody, you got to figure out a way to do it. And that kind of goes back to our sales approach too, of just how many outreaches does it take to get a hold of somebody in the first place? And that, that sales approach, and, the answer is about 11 to 14 times. You got to actually talk, reach out to somebody. And I know it sounds crazy, and you kind of get this, oh man, 6th, 7th time, reaching out to this person, and it gets a little, oh my gosh, this person's never going to talk to me. But, again, it's how do you differentiate yourself? How do you separate yourself? And again, I think you can kind of bring that back to your point of communication, right? Because it kind of starts and ends there.
No, I'm right there with you, man. I think everybody should rest on this. Everybody's good until they're not. And who are they going to think of first when that opportunity arises? Because, I would love to sit here and think that, it's going to be easy. But it's not. Like, developing business in any industry, but like right now in transportation, it's going to be the hardest thing you're ever going to encounter, right? And especially because it's like if you just look at it from a simple economic standpoint, supply and demand, there are still plenty of trucks on the road right now to accommodate. The pain has to be very, very deep for somebody to actually break outside of their comfort zone. And then if you couple that off of the individuals, those transportation managers that did operate during COVID, they've had a sense of normalcy for these past 4 years. They've been good. People forget. I think human nature, people forget how other things can be when they've experienced comfort. And those people have been comfortable these last 4 years, and they're not ready to break those chains. But that's why you got to keep following up. You truly, truly do. And they might be good right now, but that doesn't mean they're going to be good later on.
You hit the nail on the head. I agree with that sentiment. Absolutely. So.
Perfect. Derek, I appreciate your time, man. How does anybody reach out to you to find out more about what you guys got going on, or if you guys are hiring? Put all that information out there.
Yeah. So envoylogistics.com. You can go to our website there. We're on LinkedIn. So yeah, those are the two places you can go. But yeah, we're in growth mode. Like I said, I mean, we're heavy LTL, although we do international truckload as well, and then parcel as well. But our LinkedIn, our website has all of our info on it. So
Perfect. Derek, thank you so much. And that's going to be it for today, you guys. If you guys can't find Derek or Envoy out there, hit me up. I will gladly put you guys in direct contact with them. As always, if you got value in what you heard and you're not subscribed, subscribe to the show, you guys. And if you're feeling ambitious, rank that show on iTunes and Spotify, because if you see value, your network's going to see it as well. I appreciate you guys. I love you guys. And we'll be talking to you soon.
Came back with a bang, window down, yelling out money, anything. Ayy, ooh, got the foot on the gas, pedal to the metal when I'm getting to the bag. Ayy, got the foot on the gas, pedal to the metal when the lane moving